Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Queen of the Ring. This movie is directed by Ash Alvinson, and the movie stars Emily Bett Rickards, Josh Lucas, and Tyler Posey. Now, the plot of this movie is about the pioneer of female professional wrestling, Mildred Burke. And it's about her as a young waitress who wants to get into the male-dominated field of professional wrestling. And she has the aspirations and dreams to, be dominant and be the face of female wrestling. And she assists the help of Billy Burke, played by Josh Lucas. And like any movie about, a young, hungry person who wants to get into stardom, fame, any huge business, they enlist the help of somebody famous. And then a relationship develops, and as most movies like this, the relationship either, takes off and creates something great and wonderful, or, like most biopics, you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs, and that's what we have in this movie. But Mildred Burke would go on to create something that would change the world forever. Much like A League of Their Own did for baseball, this movie did for female professional wrestling. And much like The Iron Claw, this movie is one of those stories that is going to make people open their eyes. It's going to inform people of a story that a lot of people didn't even know about. But the production value isn't as good as that movie. Now, this movie is still fun. It's still good. It's still enjoyable. But this production value kind of felt like a TV movie, almost like a Lifetime movie, because it focused real heavily on the relationship aspect and then the wrestling. Even though the wrestling is a big part of it, because if Mildred Burke is not sharing the screen with Billy Burke and they're not, being happy or they're not fighting, it does deal with in-ring storytelling, as well as the relationship between Mildred Burke and her son. Now, I will say this movie has a really good cast. There are a lot of wrestlers in this movie, but then there are also a lot of stars where you're like, wow, I didn't know this person was in this movie. Aside from Emily Bett Rickards, Josh Lucas, her love interest, and her stepson, played by Tyler Posey from Teen Wolf. This movie also has female wrestlers like Toni Storm from AEW. It has Britt Baker. It's got Camille. It has, what is her name? Naomi from WWE. But it also has actors that you kind of wouldn't expect to be in a movie like this. Aside from Jim Cornette, who's a, pundit and podcaster and wrestling historian who's almost got to be in a movie like this, right? You've got actors like Walton Goggins, Martin Kove. You even have Deborah Ann Woll from TV's Daredevil. So this movie had a lot of side characters in the film. Were they all needed? Not really, but you kind of needed a big name in this type of movie, because a lot of people in this, aside from maybe Josh Lucas, are not unknowns, but they're not, A-listers. So you got to have that draw to it. Walton Goggins and Martin Kove play like these promoters or these heads of companies that kind of, bring the attraction, so to speak. They're not like the ringmasters in like carnivals, but they're the people that kind of make professional wrestling more mainstream. They bring the audience, so to speak. So this movie also was kind of like a history lesson into professional wrestling. Like a lot of wrestling movies where, you have an audience that may not know about the craft or the art or the sport of professional wrestling. So you have to have a movie every so often to kind of introduce fans, introduce audiences to that sport, just so it's not so taboo, so niche. And I feel like after a movie like this, hopefully, Hollywood starts paying more attention to the sport of professional wrestling, because like it or not, people like myself, we watch it. There's an audience for it. And, after The Iron Claw and this and The Wrestler, some of those movies can be really good. So I would say that this movie did feel like a Lifetime movie, because the production value wasn't the best. It wasn't like Iron Claw. It didn't feel like a big Hollywood budget type of movie, but for a movie that took place in the 1930s and 50s, it felt like the time period. The lighting, the kind of yellowish orange glow everything had, because everything wasn't super white and fluorescent. The movie felt like it should have happened in those time periods. Now, I will say that my real only gripe with this movie is that because it takes place over about 20 years, the aging in the movie wasn't the best. Like, aside from Mildred Burke's son growing and growing and growing, you really couldn't tell these characters were aging over 20 years. Yeah, the stepson did grow his hair out a little bit longer and grew some facial hair, and Billy Burke did have some gray in his hair every so often, but other than that, you really couldn't tell the passing of time, which to me, in a movie like this, you kind of need. Aside from establishing dates and locations in text on the screen, you didn't know what day was supposed to be when. So this movie was dramatic. This movie did have kind of a Rocky versus Ivan Drago type feel to it in regards to Mildred Burke and, I forget her name, but her big opponent, so to speak. And this movie told a good story and also introduced characters from real-life professional wrestling, so audiences could be like, oh, that's supposed to be so-and-so, that's Mae Young, that's this person, to kind of get audiences that are familiar with professional wrestling something to really, keep an eye out and connect with, if you will. And this movie also does the good job, like many true biopics, of showing the real-life people they portray. Some of them look really close, others not so much, but that's what Hollywood biopics do. They're not always going to pick, the most accurate people, because some of them have to be pretty and nice and polished for a Hollywood movie such as this. So because the acting was good, the drama was there, the sport of professional wrestling did get a line to be basked in, I like this movie. So because of that, I'm going to give Queen of the Ring a B. I will have to say that after Stephen Amell, who's Emily Brett Rickards' co-star from Arrow, got into professional wrestling, and after he had his show Heels on Netflix, there had to be something in her to go, you know what? I can do that too. And I'm glad she did, because she really portrayed this strong, tough, determined character really well in this movie. And Josh Lucas, he can play a good guy, but you know what? He can also play a SOB, and he does that quite well. So, till next time, guys. See ya.